There are only two genders. Even transgender individuals are transitioning from either male to female or from female to male. Somebody.
Okay, so you do understand that transgender people are trying to conform to the idea? Or you almost seem like you are kind of like stuck in the idea that intersex and transgender are somehow combined with each other, or somehow you think they're like born transgender individuals or something. Like that's how you're almost equating them in this idea, it seems like. That's why you said even transgender. What are you talking about? Transgender's got nothing to do with intersex. Transgender has to do with a male sexed individual, female sexed individual who identifies with a different gender than their biological sex. To me, the way I see it is I don't really see gender as a real thing, because I think that's what's confusing a lot of monosexed individuals. People who are born male or female, if they didn't get so caught up in the idea of gender, they probably wouldn't have this problem to begin with. But, well, we'll get into that.
Considers themselves to be non-binary is still a combination of male and female. A man with Klinefelter syndrome, which is what we were talking about, is a man because he has a Y chromosome. By definition, if you have a Y chromosome, you are a man. The SRY.
Really? Is that true? Oh, so you really mean to tell me that someone who's XXY is a male, yet there have been situations where women have gone pregnant with a child and had a child before that, I think when she was like 29 or something like that. And she was XXY with an SRY gene that was non existent. It didn't exist. Therefore, she only had two working chromosomes for her sex, XX. And therefore, she was female. She was giving birth to a second child who was actually XXY as well, with a negative SRY gene just like her mother. So, I mean, there are plenty of cases where they're XXY females. The thing is, XXY females go under the radar because these females are not really, they don't really go through too many health issues concerning their Y chromosome as much as people who are supposedly read as male. Those people who are read as male, by the way, they don't usually have a normal puberty. They grow breasts, They don't develop like males do. They have to take testosterone to look like men. If someone has to take testosterone to look like a man and isn't even genetically a man in the beginning, because he's not he's not XY, I mean, then, like, what are you talking about, I don't get it. Like, pay attention to the condition. Do not think penis means male, vagina means female. This is going to mess you up over and over and over again, especially when we deal with people who are in between or have a difference in sex expression, I guess you could say. Because these people do not fall into the ordinary categories of what is expected of them. And it's almost like you expect them to, when you were already told it's a difference in expression, basically, of their sex, than people who are male or female. And in the case of someone who's XXY, literally the chromosomes are not male or female. They're a combination of the two. That's why you can get two different situations where someone could look mostly male or someone could look completely female. There's one thing though. Usually when someone is XXY and more male presenting, they're not completely male presenting, because when they go through puberty and things of that nature, it gets found out. When you're female with the same chromosomal setup, just with no SRY gene, you don't get that. usually. Many of the time, they go under the radar, like I said. So, continue.
Gene on the Y chromosome will cause you to develop as a man. There's one interesting syndrome in which the person is born having XY chromosomes, but they develop into a female. Now, this is a genetic anomaly. I believe it's called Swyer syndrome, but the reason for that is because the SRY gene on the Y chromosome doesn't work. It's the
You knew about Swyer syndrome, which is XY chromosome with a defective SRY gene. What in your head made you not realize what would happen if someone was XXY with a negative SRY gene? Did you just not care to look it up? Because, I mean, like, you're very close. You're talking about XXY. You're talking about people with Swyer syndrome. But at the same time, you don't want to acknowledge the fact that if someone is XXY with a negative SRY gene, what happens in those cases? What about someone who's partially negative? You know, a defective one, specifically. It's some people have it non-existent, some people have it where it could be dysfunctional in some cases, different situations. But what I'm trying to say is basically if any of those situations happen, you see there's going to be a difference in expression of that XXY karyotype, basically. There's going to be some people who present mostly male, some people who might even present in between, some people who will present more on the female side or completely female. It depends, you know. But you didn't want to acknowledge that. It's almost like you're trying to make up a lot of different reasons why you don't want to acknowledge certain intersex conditions, because it makes it too complicated for your mind, maybe? I don't know. Continue.
Activated for some reason. So they are genetically male. They just happen to look like females and develop as females, and some of them can even give birth because that gene is deactivated.
Someone with Swyer syndrome cannot give birth to their own children because they don't have ovaries. I just wanted to correct that part. Saying giving birth, you mean their uterus is giving birth to someone else's biological child because they can't procreate themselves. Someone with XXY karyotype with an SRY gene that is non-existent would actually be able to procreate and be able to have their own children. Just pointing that out. So, I mean, I'm just saying the XXY actually does count for actually being a differentiation between someone who is XY. Because as in, like I said, with the people who are more male presenting compared to their counterparts who are XY, they are different. Now compare the people without the SRY gene that are XXY, they are exactly the same as the women who are XX. And they aren't similar to the people with Swyer syndrome. They don't have gonadal streaks. They have ovaries. They have uteruses, yes, people with Swyer syndrome have uteruses too, and women have uteruses, but they go through puberty just like women do. They do not need supplements for estrogen to go into female puberty like people with Swyer syndrome do. So, continue.
Wrong. That doesn't mean there are multiple genders or multiple sexes. It's male or female, and then syndromes. That's not a separate gender. It's a syndrome. With all due respect.
And yeah, that's what I mean. I was trying to say that there's syndromes. What? One, the people that you're describing some people, the medical community actually considers it certain things, as far as Swyer syndrome. But Swyer syndrome isn't the only syndrome. I don't understand why a lot of people who are ignorant on intersex conditions try to only pick up one condition. Like I'll see some people who bring up 5-ARD deficiency, alpha reductase deficiency, or people who will bring up androgen insensitivity syndrome, or in her case, she brings up Swyer syndrome. I mean, like, there's an array of different conditions that make someone intersex. You can't just bring up one condition and then try and say it's all syndromes. But also, the thing is that's really important is this. You are basically saying that people have syndromes and that something is wrong with them. This is the mentality, the whole idea that it's only male or female and everybody else is messed up or something's wrong with them. It's the same mentality as transgender people. You guys say that you argue against transgender people, but I really think many of the time you are the main reason why transgender people are having the issue they're having. And secondarily, more importantly, I kind of feel like these type of people don't realize that a lot of the time with what they're saying is very in common with transgender people, because with transgender people, they claim that they don't like what they were born, right? They don't like what God created. They don't like God's creation, basically. They're unhappy with the body they were given. You're the same person. You think the same way. You think that the people who are intersex, the people who have whatever sex differentiation it is, for that matter, are like something's wrong with them, basically. Or, you don't really like how they were created. You don't want to acknowledge how they were created. And you think something's wrong with them. And it's like, you understand that is the same idea that transgender people have. They literally have the same idea that something is wrong with how God created them. And you are literally saying that you think that intersex people, something was wrong with how they were created by God. So you both question God's creation. You both have issues with it. And this is the main reason why intersex people end up on the surgery table getting botched by some doctor as a baby, because of people like you with this mindset where you think something's wrong with them because you don't appreciate God's creation. So that's all I'm saying there. I mean, I'm a conservative myself, especially on, I guess you could say on transgender issues. I have a mentality where I'm not very offensive. Like, some people like to be offensive towards transgender people. I don't care to be offensive to transgender people. I mean, I am no longer a teenager, so, I mean, any ego issues or whatever, I mean, like, you kind of figured that out when you're a kid, hopefully. But, I mean, I am pretty conservative on most issues, and with transgender people, it's kind of like, I try to be more understanding of them, but, I mean, like, I feel like people like this are the main issue with those people, because they constantly want to make it a male or female thing. And it's like, one, when it comes to gender was never real in the first place, because there are men in other countries wearing dresses, okay? So, I mean, like, if gender was real, then men would automatically know not to wear dresses because they're supposedly a part of the male gender, right? There is no male gender. There isn't. There is no female gender. It's just social norms. With sex, that is real. you know. And I think people get dysphoric because of the pressures of the social norms of their bodies, sex, basically. So that's all I have to say in this video. I just think like this is utter ignorance in the sense of, you know, thinking that you're gonna lump transgender people with intersex people with the whole idea that you're uncomfortable or unhappy with how intersex people were made by God. You know, your argument crumbles when you have an issue with intersex people, and it kind of makes it seem like it's not even really about morals, it's not about religion, it's not about sanity even, because what it really is for you is what you think needs to fit into some category in your own mind, basically, rather than actually, you know, having to do with like logically someone who is biologically male or biologically female is not biologically male, you know, or biologically female. You get what I'm saying? Logically, you can't say that someone who is transitioning is going to become another sex, because sex cannot be transitioned. You know, sex is an immutable characteristic. That's just a logical conclusion, you know, from biology, you know. And, you know, to me, I mean, like, when you can't even acknowledge that, it's like you understand your premise isn't making any logical sense, because you have an issue with people who were born intersex with basically just a different sex than you. And honestly, at the end of the day, the idea of trying to act like intersex people don't trying to act like intersex people don't exist basically creates the narrative, creates the oppression of women. Because I think a major thing for intersex people, the reason they are invisible is because of the inferiorization of women, because women were always used for men's gain, basically. And basically, intersex people could not fill that role as much as women could. And so it kind of messed up the role for men, basically. I think it doesn't help anyone to try to support an organization, a system, basically, that really literally oppresses you yourself. So that's all I have to say in this video. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.